Welcome to another episode of OG55. I'm joined by the Italiano, Jared from Capture the Magic, and Mr. Theme Park Conductor. Today we're talking about that accident, that unfortunate accident over at Epic Universe recently in regards to the Stardust Racers attraction over there. We're going to talk about what we know, what we currently know at this time. We're going to talk about it. We're going to break it down up next here on OG55. Welcome aboard, everybody, to another episode of OG55. Today, we're talking all about Universal Epic Universe and that very unfortunate accident that happened recently that unfortunately took a young man's life. But we're going to talk about what we know right now and discuss it before we dive into everything. George, welcome back on the show, sir.
Thanks for having me back on. It's unfortunate under the circumstances of the topic that we have to discuss today, but it's definitely something that does need to be discussed. I think it's very important to do so. And again, I love diving deep with you guys and all things theme parks, studios, entertainment, all that good jazz.
There he is. George, where can everybody find you on social media, my friend?
Absolutely. You can find me on my YouTube channel, Citrico Central, and you can find where it's all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info. And you could also find me on Instagram under Citrico Central as well.
There he is. And we got the Chief Executive Officer of Capture the Magic in the house today. Jared, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. Like George said, it's a very unfortunate circumstance, but it's always a good time hanging out with you guys, talking about these things. And we have some more details than we had a few days ago about this whole thing, but it's incredibly tragic. And under the circumstances, we'll try and figure out what we know here. But you can find me at Captain Magic everywhere, including YouTube. And if you want actual Disney World or Universal Studios Orlando theme park info, reviews, things like that, you can find us CTM podcast with my wife and I, and that's where you can find me.
There he is. I'll be linking all that information in the description down below, so make sure you go ahead and support Capture the Magic. And last but certainly not least, we got Mr. Theme Park Conductor in the house. Conductor, I want to thank you for joining. I know you had a long night last night, huh?
I did. How is that not scary farm? And believe me, it was a blast. But it's always great to be on Orange Go 55. And like these lovely gentlemen said, we have a very sad topic to talk about. A young man lost his life on a roller coaster that probably should have never happened in the first place, but it did. So we're going to break down all the details, what we know so far. Hopefully, my thoughts and prayers go out to the family and his friends, because it's probably a horrific time for them. But like Orange Go 55 said, I'm Theme Park Conductor. You can find me on YouTube, Instagram, and Blue Sky at Theme Park Conductor. You can find me on X at Theme Conductor. You can also find me on TikTok at Theme Park Conductor 1. You can also find me every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, where we talk everything about Universal, Disney, HHN, Not Scary Farm, and the up-and-coming Christmas season.
There we go. And before we get started, I do want to say that for this video, I'm not going to be monetizing this video due to the seriousness of the topic and out of respect for the young man and his family. If you were going to send like a super sticker or any kind of super chat or whatever, just take whatever you would have donated to OG55, and I'll be linking the family's GoFundMe down below, and please consider helping them out, because I think his wife started a GoFundMe.
I think it was his sister that started it, I think. But they had an $8,000 goal, and it's almost at $25,000 now. So they've gone beyond their goal. But yeah, that's they did set that up a couple days ago.
Absolutely, and all that will be down below. So if you can't donate, because I know money's tight for people, but maybe at the very least, try to go ahead and share it out, and we'll help this family out. So this is courtesy of the Associated Press. Man who died on Universal Orlando roller coaster had a spinal condition, report says. It says here, this is courtesy of Mr. Mike Snyder. Emergency workers who responded to Universal Orlando Resort's newest park for a man who became unresponsive on a coaster. Originally, we're told he had lacerations, but when they got to the ride, he wasn't breathing and eventually died, according to the radio traffic and a report released Friday by the sheriff's office. It says here that Zavala's longtime girlfriend, who was with him, told deputies that he had a pre-existing spinal condition. He used a wheelchair and was taking medication, the report said. He said after performing the autopsy, Joshua Stefani, the medical examiner for the Orlando area, ruled the cause of death as multiple blunt impact injuries and said the manner of the death was an accident. Okay, Jared, so I'll start with you. So we've heard a lot of talk in the community. People have been speculating now for a few days as to what was going on. We heard a lot of like on the ground reports from people saying there was a piece of metal or something, and there some people said they didn't see that. I don't know. There's been a lot of contradictory reports, but now it seems like we're getting a little more information in regards to this accident. It does look like the gentleman did have a pre-existing condition. He was a pretty young dude, early 30s. But Jared, what are your thoughts on this, brother?
Well, first, I mean, it's incredibly sad. When it first happened, you do hear about people passing out on roller coasters. Unfortunately, sometimes you're looking at people who have, heart issues. Like sometimes these things happen. But then when they ruled the fact that it was blunt force, like multiple blunt force trauma, that completely changes it. Now, the thing about Stardust Racers is when you get on this ride, you can't have a cell phone. There's metal detectors. So there's no footage out there really of any of this. So a lot of this is firsthand or witnesses, and sometimes witnesses, 20 people can see the same thing and you get 20 different versions of what happened. So we do know the blunt force trauma. They didn't say where though, assuming in the head or the chest would be my guess there. But then there was lacerations, which also brings in more questions to this because the dispatch call said that they did CPR on the guy. And then there was one guy, I'm not going to name him. I don't know how credible this is. He's the only one saying it, that he saw either behind his coaster train or in front of him a piece of metal. But he even said it may have been where they used, the team members opened it up after he pulled into the station. Now they do have this set up for people that are with wheelchairs can ride this ride. I don't know if maybe they have to pull something out to do that, like if they're wheelchairs. And I'm not really sure the specifics on it, but that is out there. I don't know how much credence I give to it, but that's kind of where all the facts that we do know. But the lacerations, it brings some things into question, but that's kind of all the details here. But a lot of this, the girlfriend is the one that had said that he had a spinal condition. So that is what we do know from her. Other than that, it's a lot of people just seeing things and saying things to the media here and there, really.
Do we know, did anyone actually go on the ride with him, or was he by himself?
I think his girlfriend was sitting next to him.
Okay.
I think, from what I've heard. And there's some, again, you're hearing a lot of different stuff online. There's some reports saying he rode the ride multiple times the same day. I can't find anything that verifies it. But yeah, it's just a lot of hearsay, and there's an investigation going on, of course. But Universal is not saying anything. And I think the autopsy report where the lacerations were and like where the blunt force trauma would probably be helpful. But at that point, we just don't know that.
Yeah, and that's all. And again, speculating here. I mean, initially when they were reporting of the blunt force trauma, a lot of people were saying, "Oh, well, then it must be Universal's fault because an item must have hit the gentleman," right? But not necessarily. There's been a lot of experts I've seen interviewed and stuff. I think you touched upon it, Jared, too, where it's like, if the gentleman passed out, right, and he doesn't really have control of his body, and this is a pretty, from what I'm seeing, it's a pretty crazy coaster. I mean, it really whips you around. So those blunt force traumas could have been from him lashing around and hitting stuff as he's going through the coaster. So yeah, we have to really wait and see what the report stuff, the autopsy report says before we kind of know for sure. But conductor, what say you, sir?
So, it's very interesting to me because, like Jared was mentioning, people were saying that a piece of metal might have hit him. I don't know how credible that is. The way I see it is intimate. I haven't heard one horror story from them from any coasters they
Actually,
have.
Mac is the producer of this one, not Intimate.
Okay. Okay, so Mac, I don't know too much about Mac. They could have had something in the past. I'm not sure, but as far as I'm concerned, a brand new roller coaster. There hasn't been any really horrific weather conditions out there in Orlando that would cause a piece of metal to be loose. Like Jared was mentioning before the video, we were all talking, and something for everyone to keep in mind, they test these coasters every single morning multiple times before they even allow guests on there. And a lot of times they'll test it, they'll run the cycle several times, then they'll have team members go on it just to make sure it's okay, because obviously the coaster's insured, the park's insured, the employees that work for the park are insured, so they want to make sure everything's good to go for the theme park guest. And then again, pure speculation, if the gentleman who sadly passed away did ride the coaster multiple times, didn't have any issues, it's just interesting that he's literally the only one out of how many people can be on a train at once?
I think it's 2x2, and I think you've got 4 per train. I think.
Okay, so what, like maybe 16?
6, yeah, something like that, probably somewhere around there.
Okay, so 16 people on average is on this train, but yet he's the only one that supposedly got hit by some type of debris or a metal piece of some sort. I don't know how credible that is. Personally, for me, not saying there's anything wrong. Everyone's just how they're built, and whatnot. If his girlfriend comes out and says, which she did, that he has a current spinal injury, my question becomes, which you see on all coasters across the world, they always have a warning sign, and Universal is great on warning people, hey, if you're pregnant, if you have back issues, which this guy had a spinal injury, and then some other stuff, do not ride this attraction. So this gentleman and his girlfriend decided to ignore those rules, thinking they were going to be okay, and sadly that wasn't the case. Again, I'm not blaming them, but then on the other hand, the rules are pretty clear.
Well, and here's the thing, conductor. I mean, you bring up a good point here with that. I mean, yeah, I don't blame them either, because here's the thing. I think we all kind of fall victim to this thing where we kind of we all see the warnings, but we all kind of just
it's not going to happen to me, sort of thing. Yeah,
it's not going to happen to me, and we're so used to seeing these warnings about if you have back problems or heart conditions, or that it almost becomes just kind of part of the background, and you don't even really it doesn't really even register when you see them. It's just so natural. So I think that it was kind of the same with him and his girlfriend, and they just kind of figured, okay, he'll be fine. Unfortunately, you know what I'm saying? And we all kind of do that. We all, like you said, Jared, we all kind of assume, hey, I'm the exception. I'm going to be just fine. It's not going to happen to me, Well,
I kind of always look at like Occam's razor of keeping it as simple as possible until you have other evidence that proves that. And I think if you're looking at the situation, you have a young man who had a spinal cord injury pre-existing when he got on the ride. So then you're looking at, okay, was it that led to this? Or was it a catastrophic failure of this roller coaster, which is what you would be looking at? Something terribly wrong happened either on the roller coaster or potentially a guest had something. But again, it's going to be really difficult for a guest to have a phone on this ride that would have struck him, because you have to go through the metal detectors and you can't have a phone on here. So Occam's razor, I tend to agree of like, you have an existing spinal cord issue. And my theory, and this is just me, my personal, like what I think could have happened is you pass out. Yeah. You don't have support of your head. That ride has a lot of G-forces. It goes 60 some odd miles an hour. I could definitely see a situation your head gets hit around quite a bit. Your arms are loose, and we do know there was lacerations on his arms. That could explain that. But I do think the blunt force trauma is the thing that really, there's just a lot of question marks around that. I think if it was a heart attack, it's obviously that's just a no-brainer as to what happened. But that's kind of everything that we know. That's sort of my going theory right now.
So Jared, the blunt force trauma Okay, so they did release the autopsy, but they didn't really say where the.
They didn't say where the trauma was. They said multiple though too, which also leads me to think, you're banging your head around a few times, your hand hits your head. Like,
I never understood that though. Like, if you're going to release a medical document, why not just say everything that's
see, that's the problem that we live in nowadays, George, is the fact that when something happens, whether it's this situation or it's something to do with protest and someone gets killed or whatever the case might be, something traumatic, they always say, oh yeah, this is the underlying cause. But as time goes on, more and more details leak out, and then eventually there's so many details that people want to know what's going on, then they release it, and sometimes they release it prematurely, and then they have to go back, retract, resubmit it, then it's just, I agree with you 100%. If they know what happened, why be so sensitive to it? Release it. I don't get what the holdback is. Obviously, yes, it did only happen a couple days ago. I understand the severity of it, but the autopsy is done, so there's no more waiting. So I'm not sure why they want to wait. Obviously Universal probably already knows the details of it because it's their park, but the people that have annual passes, the shareholders, people that are planning to go to Epic Universe, like all of us in March, we want to know these details. We want to know if it was the person that was the cause of it in a way, or was it the coaster, like Jared said, that was a failure on some level. We want to know facts.
Now, I will say this. It's to your own risk with anything that you do in life.
Sure.
So I mean, I respect the guy that just because that if he was injured, like internally, like permanently, sure, and he was disabled and everything, he wanted to live his life for the fullest. He wanted to do what he enjoyed doing. He probably loved roller coasters. He, as it had mentioned, he'd been on them before. And so he's probably thinking, why is this time going to be anything different? Now, I will say one way or the other, if everything comes out clean, it wasn't, Universal's issue with the coaster itself, but just in general, this coaster, since it had opened, and Epic Universe has not been open that long of time right now, but there have been multiple issues, particularly with this roller coaster. I think there was a report, I think it was from May and also June, of two people. One was a woman, I believe, that had complained of injuries, and then I think a gentleman came off with breathing issues. And then also, while I was down there in the hospital for my kidney stones, someone got admitted because they actually had a back injury, like whiplash, from the coaster.
Wow.
So this ride in particular is not shy from having those kind of things. Now, again, based off of how many people go on this ride day for day, week for week, you put that up against 3 or 4 maybe incidences, and it's still a dime a dozen.
Well, and here's the thing too: we have no reference point, like no point of reference. For example, how many hospitalizations or complaints does Space Mountain get that we don't hear about, right? So like this might be a normal amount for any coaster, but we don't really know that, and it's coming out right now.
Now, I do also have to say too, Dev, or he was previously known as Prince Charming Dev, that he actually did a video where he was on a roller coaster, and it was either in Busch Gardens in Tampa or it was SeaWorld in Orlando, and he was riding a coaster, and he actually had it on film, and he actually lost conscious while he was recording, and he came to while the ride was still going. Wow. But he got a physical, he got checked and everything. He was in tip-top shape. They just said that actually from him losing consciousness on the ride he was slightly dehydrated and everything, but all in all, he was healthy. So at any time, anywhere, someone can end up losing consciousness on a roller coaster. So
Sure.
it may not necessarily have been the spinal injury itself, but it could have been just from him, blacking out and him being like the kind of like a ragdoll kind of thing.
Sure.
That's what then again sparked maybe something in his spine, or again what he hit or something hit him
Sure.
from flimsing around. But I
Sure.
mean, one way or the other, it's horrible either way.
Well,
but I think maybe that too is why maybe they won't release a lot of the info, is because even though they have the quote unquote answer, but it's still pieces of the puzzle that's still missing, and they may be wanting to find those puzzle pieces before releasing a full statement.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point, George, and I'll go to you, Jared. You bring up a great point because it's kind of like the COVID thing. There was a lot of talk back in the day about dying from COVID or dying with COVID. Like if you have COVID, but you die of a heart attack, like you know you died of a heart attack. You had COVID, but the heart attack was the cause of death, right? So he might have had a spinal injury when he died, but the spinal injury wasn't necessarily what was the problem. It could have these blunt force injuries or whatever could have been caused by something else in regards to the coaster. It could be a lot of different things. So that's a fantastic point, George, because people are hearing spinal injury thinking, oh, it has to be that, but not necessarily though, right? Go ahead, Jared.
Well, I mean, a lot of things can lead to, like George said, like being dehydrated. If you talk about, sometimes people that are, I don't know if he was paraplegic. I don't know the circumstances of his issues but that can sometimes lead to other health related issues also. That can lead to, if you go on a roller coaster that's that intense where you lose consciousness. So there's going to be a lot of things that go into it. Now, I do know George brought up those one things. I do know, and most of the time this is the case, and I remember I did this because I looked up for my video. Those two cases, Universal was very quick to point out that they had pre-existing conditions, that those people that experience those issues. And that happens a lot. It is kind of rare where you see people really get injured and they're just perfectly healthy. It obviously does happen. It can happen. But a lot of times, like you said, OG, it's like you hear the warning signs. And this summer, we're probably all used to them and we go to the parks quite a bit. But my brother came this summer, and we've been to both Disney and Universal. When we were at Universal, he was like, man, Universal really warns you about stuff. And I was like, what? And I didn't notice it, but it's like the whole time you're going through there, it's like you're riding Green Gods. So like, you might die. Hey, like, let's just, like, you're just like all these warnings about, and it's, Green Gods is not that intense of a ride, but they definitely give you a ton of warnings to let people know, like, if you have any of these issues, like, essentially don't ride this, but they can't, they're not going to do physicals at the station before you get on it.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing. It's like a lot of people disregard that stuff. And look, we become so desensitized to these warnings that we don't really even think about it. It's like the fine print. Like most people just, when they buy a car or whatever it is, you just sign, you buy a new, you have a new cell phone plan, you just sign it, you go on your merry way. It's not until there's a problem that crap, there was something
I won't get into any details of that, but if anyone has watched any episodes of South Park,
oh yeah,
watch the Human Centipede episode. You'll get what you'll.
Careful of those terms and conditions.
Yeah. That's wild. But I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I understand he had conditions and stuff like that, and it's easy for outsiders to say, like, all people from the outside say, oh, he should have just followed, he should have read the sign, and maybe so, but I mean, most people don't feel like it's ever gonna be a problem for them. And like you said, George, this guy, he probably had a big passion for coasters and stuff. And you got to live your life, I mean, you only have one shot at this thing called life. And what are you gonna do? You gonna live in a bubble? You know what I'm saying? I mean,
exactly. Well, see, here's two things I want to point out. If that's the case, by all means, live your life, and that's awesome. If you want to take the opportunity to do so. But on Universal's defense, if people, like Jared said, they're going to ignore the signs, do it anyway because they want to do it, they want to be a thrill junkie, it's their life passion to do stuff like this, hey, by all means. But the warning signs, I personally think, need to be updated. And it clearly needs to say on these warning signs, ride at your own risk. If something, God forbid, happens, we are not responsible.
Well, that is the double-edged sword. Like in any theme park, I feel like where, you know, if you take the risk and allow guests to do this, and you may think it's not a good idea, then they can come back with a lawsuit. Or if you even approach someone and say, hey, you can't ride this, then they can get you on discrimination.
See, and I brought at that point as well that this ride is built for people in wheelchairs. And so unless like he was showing obvious signs like he couldn't hold his head up, because my wife has ridden it. Have you ridden it, George, when you went?
Not yet. No.
Okay. She said they tell you keep your head very like still. And she said it's an intense ride. She's like, it's along the same lines as like Velocicoaster. It has a lot of G forces. So I could totally see if you can't control your head, how it's going to start banging around. And funny enough, someone, a commenter on a video I just did on this, they're both, him and his wife are physicians. And this is exactly what he said. He goes, what probably happened was he threw a clot, passed out, and got beat up by the ride after he went limp. When you're wheelchair bound, it's easier to get clots. And if he was on blood thinners, then you can basically have a stroke. The ride operator shouldn't have let him on. This is his opinion. But I'm sure the ride warnings will clear Epic of liability.
Yeah. Now here's
if you're allowing wheelchairs on, it's like, how are you going to know? Like if he's sitting there and he looks upright, like George said, if you don't let him on, they could sue you for discrimination.
Exactly. Right. I was just going to say that you can't be asking. So I think again, the warning signs for these type of attractions should be updated. And me and George were talking last night on a separate matter, but we happened to get to this point. And one of the things that George said was with the up and coming Fast and Furious Hollywood Drift coaster, how we don't have the over shoulder restraint system. And obviously Stardust Racers does not. But now with this investigation, it might clear universal liability, but could we see a change of restraints on the ride vehicles themselves? And could other attractions like Fast and Furious Hollywood Drift and any other future roller coaster just automatically decide to do the over shoulder restraint as an extra protection?
Well, and here's the thing. Here's the thing.
Sorry, bro, really quick. And Fast and Furious has the rotating seats.
Yes.
So you're going to be spinning while you're hitting those G forces while not even being restrained this way. You're just basically having a bar coming around your waist and torso.
Right, exactly. And here's the thing. And again, I'm not a lawyer, you know, contrary to popular belief, OG is not a lawyer. No, but I'm not a lawyer, but that might be, let's say the family decides to sue, and Universal can absolutely use the warning signs as like, hey, look, you know, we warn you. But like you were saying, Jared, when they tell you like, keep your head straight, but there's nothing here to really, what happens when someone passes out? You know what I'm saying? That could be the thing where I could see a lawyer saying, hey, you know what? My client passed out. They couldn't keep their head straight, and there's no guard for your head. I mean, passing out on a roller coaster is not super, super rare. I mean, it's not like every day probably, but it's not like unheard of. So that might be the loophole there, you know?
You see in those viral videos of especially girls that do those like slingshot rides and they pass out and come to, and it's like funny stuff. Like, you know, I think even like Kevin Hart on a video passed out on, it may have been Rockin'.
He went on
Rockin' maybe.
He passes out on a carousel. So,
well, true. But I think what you could, I mean, the really thing you could see from this, if they do find out that it was something related to the disability, I mean, they may just not allow wheelchair accessibility on this ride, particular other coasters, is what you could see.
But
I could actually see an overall change in the ride vehicles themselves. Like, for instance, Stardust, Velocicoaster, the new Fast and Furious, and any subsequent roller coasters moving forward, they may have to, if it's to a certain extent of hitting a G-force or that kind of intensity, they may have to be required to have the pull down restraint rather than just the bar. Because I mean, I've been on Velocicoaster. I absolutely love it. It's very thrilling. I think they do it so you can get that airtime, but at the same time, if it is going to cause issues where but what did you say, Jared? It's at 1 in.
So your chances of dying on a roller coaster are 1 in 750 million.
Okay, so that's like a short amount,
Right.
to say forward. But I mean, are theme parks going to want to continue that risk moving forward? If that is the case, if it comes back that there is something of the ride that was responsible.
Well, I will say this ride did have, I believe they installed trim brakes on here because it was hitting really high G forces during testing before the park opened. Now that's not like confirmed, but that's been reported that you can see that they did install some trim brakes to kind of slow it down on certain sections. So it is a ride that has a lot of, I mean, it doesn't go upside down a ton, but it has a lot of G forces and speed and height to it.
Was there any reports that the family is looking to?
I haven't heard anything.
Okay.
Yeah, not that I've heard. Basically, the only thing I heard that came from his girlfriend was the fact that he had a pre-existing spinal issue, and then his sister, I believe, set up the GoFundMe.
Because it seems like that they're cooperating with everything. So I wonder, even in their own minds, even though that they're grieving, it was a sad thing that they go to a theme park to have fun, not knowing that they were going to come out and lose a brother and a boyfriend out of it.
Yeah.
It's a tragic thing. But the route that it seems like they're going, it seems like they're cooperating, and they may already know to say that, you know what, this isn't Universal's responsibility. We know kind of what he already had pre-existing. So maybe they're in a shock, but they can understand how it could have happened.
I would assume if something hit him, she would have said, you had a bunch of people saying there's a flying thing that hit it. I just would assume that would be the case, at least.
Well, see, this is what I find extremely interesting, and it puzzles my mind, and I even said it earlier, was you got 16 people on that coaster, but yet he was the only one that was supposedly hit by this, blunt object. I find that very, very weird that he's the only one that got hit with it. No one else saw it, unless they were, people on the ground that they can't even confirm what they saw. Jared said that supposedly on the ride itself, once they got back into the station, they opened some type of little door on the back of the seat or whatever it might have been for, maybe it was a way to kind of take apart the seat a little bit to, get him out of the coaster, even if he was alive, that's how they have it set up for people that are disabled in a wheelchair. But again, I find it very suspicious. He's the only one that got hit by this thing, if it was even a projectile at all. And out of 16 people, where was the other 15 witnesses, including his girlfriend?
Yeah,
Did she even say that she saw this metal piece hit him in the head or wherever?
Well, it makes me wonder if Universal has any video footage within themselves that they can't release to the public. They only have to go through, the investigation and the sheriff's office and what have you, because we all know, especially out here in Hollywood, if you go on Flight of the Hippogriff, and you're going up the hill and someone pulls out their phone, man, do they shut that ride down. It does not move. And they make sure that your phone is in your... So the fact that they would know that someone pulls out their phone, they have film footage throughout the ride that they know. I wonder if Stardust does have those features where there is film being recorded through Universal for safety purposes, and they can go back on those tapes.
So I honestly think they do. I think they have little cameras set up throughout the track that's watching it. I again, like you said, George, it's probably not going to be released to the public. It probably would never be released to the public. Obviously, it's, like you said, they're probably, sharing the video with the ride manufacturer, with the family, with possibly their attorney, the sheriff's office and whoever else. But I don't think personally they would ever put that footage on there. But who knows? Because there was footage that we saw of there was an accident, and this was over 10 years ago, but there was an accident on Accelerator at Knott's Berry Farm. where a father and the son were sitting in the very front seat, and because it has such an old ride, system, I think Intamin is the one that made that one. The where it slingshots you up the hill. Well, apparently somewhere the cable snapped and literally swung backwards and hit the kid right in the arm or body or wherever it was. And to this day, he's still having surgeries.
Yeah.
And I think he's had over 1,000 surgeries. So again, who knows? But my bigger question becomes, how, if the investigation leads to possibly, changing restraints not only on Stardust Racers, but evaluating the Velocicoaster, the new coaster that's replacing Rip Ride Rocket, and then Hollywood Drift out here in Hollywood, could we see delays, especially with Hollywood Drift?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Conductor. I think you're absolutely correct on that. If there is some sort of issue, where it's like, with the ride, with the vehicle itself not having the over the shoulders, Universal might go through and start to look at some of these other attractions like Hollywood Drift and whatever is replacing, Rip Ride Rocket. And that's a definite possibility. I mean, they might, look, we've all said it here, and Universal is very good with the safety. They are. I feel very safe in Universal, like on Universal attractions, because they are so diligent. When we were on that hippogriff thing, you said it. I mean, they stopped us. Put your phone away. I mean, you heard them. I mean, they are watching and they're very, very diligent. A lot of these coasters have, the lockers and stuff to put them in and things like that. So it wouldn't surprise me even if it comes out. And I'm thinking it will be the case. I don't want to jump ahead, but I don't think this is going to be Universal's fault. No. I think Universal might even take proactive action and be like, you know what? This is something that we have to address, even though this isn't necessarily our fault, just to make sure, if someone passes out, we're covered. Go ahead, Jared.
Well, if you got to think, Stardust Racers is brand new. These all things are built to code. So more than likely, I agree with you. I think you're going to come to find out that the coaster did nothing wrong. And I suppose it would come on Universal. Maybe they change the ride on Stardust Racers as also like, so people aren't worried, because then it gets a reputation, or it can also lead to coaster nuts wanting to ride a ride that they think is dangerous. But they would almost need to go in and make changes to the code overall, because I just don't think the Stardust Racers was not built to code and wasn't maintaining its code. So whatever it is, it might be Universal making changes just for the brand identity of being safe and people feeling comfortable, that just because they didn't break any rules and nothing happened doesn't mean that the general public won't look at it that way and need more reassurance.
1,000%, Jared. Exactly. That's what. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Where it's like Universal wants to maintain its brand reputation. I think it'd be a good idea out here in California at Disneyland. Actually, during a very dark era, actually at Disneyland, when we had Paul Pressler and Cynthia Harris running the parks. This is years and years ago. I'm thinking like mid 90s to like 2001 ish. That kind of era. We had 2 accidents. I think both actually resulted in deaths. We had an accident on the Columbia ship where one of the ship's cleats came loose and hit I think it was a gentleman. He was like a IT guy or something for Microsoft or something like that. But it hit him and it killed him. And then Big Thunder killed somebody. One of the connectors to the train was loose and it came apart and it derailed. But those 2 incidences for a long time tainted Disney's reputation. The last thing Universal wants is something like that. Even if it's not their fault, you still don't want the perception of like, I don't want to get on that thing. You hear what happened to that one guy or, this, that, and the other. Yeah. Universal might want to take proactive action. And I think knowing Universal and how really strict and particular they are with stuff, I wouldn't be surprised if they do. You think it's a possibility, George?
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel that if I was a company or like a theme park, I would want to do as much as I possibly can. So things, even if it is just one time or what have you, you don't want to see any repetitive, I can never say that word, repetitiveness. because when you do, then you really start seeing the issues.
Yeah.
So for me, I would want to always catch it before something else, goes along. And honestly, I would think that it's a not an easy fix, but I think it's one of those things that they could fix, like as we were mentioning, like with the over the head harness and everything. I think it would secure people that, so if there is someone that has like physical medical issues, that can still be able to ride, to make sure like your head is secured, your backers is secured, everything. I mean, I have no problem with an over the head harness.
No.
Like that doesn't hinder my experience on a coaster if there is or there isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it might be worth
this
it.
is also in the social media era. I mean, there have been incidents in other theme parks. I mean, even Silver City, where I grew up, there was somebody died on one of those roller coasters at least once, maybe twice. It kind of became like park lore about, that this was the ride that somebody died. But under this new era of social media, it's not only you don't want this out there, but how quickly all this stuff spreads. And that's another thing that Universal also has to contend with.
Well, see, you said it right on the nail, Jared. As it gets longer and longer before an official announcement comes out, there's going to be more speculation, more rumors, more misinformation, and it's only going to do damage not only to Universal, it's going to do damage to the family and the gentleman who died. It's going to do damage to the company that made the coaster. It's going to do so much more damage the longer they wait. The more proactive thing they can do, like OG said, is evaluate the restraint system, change it if they must, and look at other coasters. And then on the other side, have the sheriff's department come out with the lead investigator, with Mark Woodbury, the family, and make a public statement. That is the best way you can handle something like this. That way, there could be reassurances. People might feel a little bit more comfortable than they do now. Because let's just say, hypothetically, 3 days from now, they open the coaster back up. You might see walk-ons on that coaster because everyone's freaked out.
Yeah.
And let's say there's no statement, because I've seen it. I can't even tell you how long it took for a official statement to come out from Universal, and I guess the mom and her kid, or whoever was on the tram accident going through the Jurassic Park area. How long did that take for an official announcement? And look, it hasn't been open to this day. Obviously, that's a little bit different. But what I'm saying is, in layman's terms, the longer they wait, the worse it gets.
Well, yeah, because you're right. The social media, like you were saying, Jared, the social media age, and rumors and assumptions and theories and all that, they get out there on social media, and what happens is then Universal loses the narrative, so to speak, and get on top of it, get out there, say exactly what caused it, what was the issue, if there was some kind of issue with the design of it, get on that, fix it right away, really get on top of it, because you're right, it can cause not just reputation damage to that particular ride, but just Universal in general. Go ahead, George. Sorry.
Well, and yeah, and that's very true, to the fact where a lot of times companies think, okay, yeah, we'll just open the ride, and then just automatically everything's all well and good, just because that they feel like that is the answer by opening the ride. And for guests' own safety, that they're the ones riding it, that's not enough. If you want to open the ride, but yeah, you come out with a overall statement saying the ride has been cleared. We've done many inspections. There were investigations. We're in the clear. We feel, bad that this tragedy had happened. Thoughts and prayers go out to the family during their difficult time, and so on and so forth. And then with the ride opening with that statement, I think a lot of people would feel a little bit more better than just opening the ride and saying, okay, we're good, call it a day.
Well, see, here's the other thing too. One extra layer of protection that could come out as well is, something where if if Universal approaches the family and says, hey, you know what, we have our inspectors checking out the coaster, they can't find anything wrong, you know, do you guys want to hire an independent investigator to evaluate the ride, someone that it qualifies to inspect the ride themselves so they can get an outside opinion that's not paid by Universal and their, you know, liability insurance company, which I'm sure they have, you know, so it's an out, you know, it's something that the family hired and they can get reassurance that they're getting the same answer that Universal's, you know, inspectors found. I think that would add an extra layer of, you know,
I
comfort.
think it would be, from my understanding, it would be like the state inspectors. I don't know if Universal really has their own inspectors, but I get what you're saying.
Well, see, my only thing with either Universal inspectors or the state inspectors, they can always, you know, like OG and even you said it, George. People on social media nowadays, they can say one narrative and it goes viral, whether it's wrong, right or wrong. So I think someone independent that, again, Universal or the state doesn't pay for, and it's, you know, the family hires this person and they specialize in inspecting something like this, like a coaster, I think that would give a lot of people comfort, because then they can't say, hey, you know, we you know, this person was paid by Universal or this pay was paid by the state, you know, because you hear it all the time, you know, something like that, and they say, oh well, they kicked them some extra money to say this when it wasn't that. You know what I mean?
I can see that kind of out there, because it's like, you know, it's the big company that brings a lot of tourists, a lot of money into the area,
Sure.
and you know, we don't want to harm. Yeah, I can see what you're saying with that. Now,
correct me if I'm wrong, really quick. Sorry, Jared. Did they say on the news station that Universal has their own like inspection maintenance people that cover all that kind of stuff rather than have outside state inspectors come in for that?
I would think they have both.
Yeah.
I'm sure they have maintenance that does that, and also probably state inspectors that may come more infrequently. I'll just say that I get what you're saying, theme park or conductor. To me, if they come back and say Universal is not at fault, I don't think they're going to open up that box and let somebody else come in and then maybe come after the fact and say, actually, what we found. Because it'd be like being like, hey, you found innocent of murder. And you're like, actually, I would like to have another guy take a look at my case to prove my innocence further. And then it's like, well, actually, did you look at this piece of evidence over here? So I think if it comes back to Universal is not at fault here, internet's going to be internet. If they're cleared, they can do some extra things on their end to assure guests and figure, you know, as time goes along, this will blow over, and it probably will, as long as there's nothing catastrophic happen. I would be very shocked if they took the extra step of allowing some third party that could come in there and then, you know, basically undo their innocence after the fact.
Well, see, here's the thing that I would probably say on that. If a third party did come in, one of the things I would look at is they can come in and look at every inch of the track if they want, but Universal inspectors or state inspectors, or both of them, including probably the Department of OSHA, would have to watch this third party group of inspectors to make sure that they're not just blowing smoke up the, you know what, just to satisfy whoever to get a lawsuit payment. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but then again, you know, the average day person nowadays, you know, they look at a company like Universal, or in my case, they look at a company like Costco. They see that they make, you know, over $100 billion a year, you know.
And that's just in bidets.
Wow.
A lot of good bidets out there.
Well,
Kirkland Select.
exactly. No, but if you look at it, you know, people are always trying to get a quick buck. And I'm not, and I want to clarify this, I'm not saying the family is going to do that.
Right.
I'm not saying that. But there's so much other people that do that. It causes this type of hysteria on that. So
Fair.
that's the only thing I would say. If they want to bring the third party in, fine, but also have Department of OSHA there, state inspectors, universal inspectors, so that way whatever they think they find, you know, all the other three departments can say, oh, okay, we missed that, you're right, we can clarify that's accurate and that they're not blowing smoke.
Now,
You know what I mean?
absolutely. Now, Jared, I wanted to ask you, like, how long do you think before we know, like all the details and the ride opens? I mean, do you think we're talking days, weeks?
I would assume probably days. I mean, they were cycling it a couple of nights ago, like running it, which means they were, I'm sure that, I'm guessing there were inspectors on site. They were running it through. It was at nighttime to check how the operations were. I think they probably know exactly. I mean, obviously the autopsy, they know what happened here. I suppose they're just, it would come down to what they suspect it could be. But I think if things are pointing to the fact that this guy had a medical incident on the ride and this is what happened, probably within a week, I would assume. If it goes on longer, I think then you would start looking at like, oh, did they find something or other things like that. But I don't recall how quickly the other ones wrap up on these things. But I don't think there's really that much you'd have to really look into to really kind of figure out what happened.
Yeah. I think really what they found in the autopsy will probably tell them most of what they need, I would assume.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But we are all thinking and praying for the family. This is tragic. I mean, absolutely tragic. I will be linking the family's GoFundMe down below for Mr. Zavala, his family. You can donate or just share it out if you can't donate. So it'll be down below if you choose to share or donate. George the Italiano, it was great having you on, sir, today. Where can everybody find you on social media?
Absolutely. It was always great being on with you gentlemen and, again, talking this stuff. Unfortunately, as I said, due to the circumstances of what happened, this wasn't like a happy kind of topic, but I think it's definitely a topic that needs to be addressed, needs to be discussed, because that's what we do on here. We cover all things, theme parks and what have you. But in any case, you can find me on my YouTube channel, Citrico Central, and you could also find me on Instagram under Citrico Central as well, where basically I just cover, boots on the ground in the theme parks, Disneyland, Walt Disney World, Universal on both coasts, Disney Cruise Line, all that good jazz.
There he is, Citrico Central, which recently celebrated 1,000 subs, and now you're already at a 1.4K, bro. What's going on, dude?
Goodness.
It's boosting. It really is, and I'm happy. I'm excited. Can't wait to see where the channel goes. But I mean, with all this popularity, now I know how the K-poppers feel.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. I know, absolutely, bro. You're basically K-pop at this point. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Mr. Conductor, it was great having you on, sir. It's been a little while. It's good to see you, brother. Where can everybody find you on social media?
Absolutely. And again, shout out to our amazing host, Orange Go 55. Shout out to all these gentlemen. Always a great time talking theme parks. Like George said, it's a very sad topic we had to cover today. But again, it's most important for everyone to not spread gossip, rumors, misinformation. Let the authorities do their job. Let them put out the report, and then I'm sure we're going to do more videos on this as more news comes out. But like Orange Go 55 said, I'm Theme Park Conductor. You can find me on YouTube, Blue Sky at Theme Park Conductor. You can find me on Instagram at theme_park_conductor. You can find me on TikTok at Theme Park Conductor 1. You can also find me on X at Theme Conductor, and you can find me every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for Conductor Sunday live stream, where we talk everything Universal, Disney, HHN, Not Scary Farm, and the up and coming Christmas season at the parks.
There we go. And last but certainly not least, Jared from Capture the Magic. Thank you for joining, sir. And where can everybody find you on social media?
Well, thanks for having me. It's always a great time hanging out with you guys and talking shop, even though it's not a great topic or it's a sad topic, like George said. And congrats on George, by the way. Last I checked, you were at like 400 and 800, and I think it's all due to the bidet talk, if I'm being honest.
Actually, to be honest, it really was. As I said, ever since those last several lives, and then we ran right into the bidet talk.
Hey, I mean, behave yourself. You told me you're going to behave. Quiet.
Anybody want some growth out on YouTube, you know where to go. But no, congrats to George. Happy to see that. And you can find me at Captain Magic everywhere. And then if you want theme park information, Disney World, Universal Studios Orlando, CTM Podcast, where you can find me. And yeah, this is a sad topic, and hopefully we find out, hopefully for the theme park's sake, I mean, not that I'm rooting for anything in particular, but hopefully that wasn't some catastrophic issue and it was just something unfortunate that happened, and everybody can kind of get some closure on this.
100%. We are thinking and praying for the family. Everybody at home, thank you for watching. Comment down below with all your thoughts on this accident as to what we know at this point. I want to thank everybody for watching this episode of OG 55. And until the next time, see you.
Thank you so much for watching OG 55. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and become a member today.